This is Robert Depper, Chair of the Burlington Police Commission. It is January 27th, 2026. I will call this meeting to order. I will go for a roll call and determination of quorum. Commissioners, I'm going to call your name. If you could indicate you're present. I'll start on the screen. Commissioner Karen Paul.
I'm here.
Commissioner Mary Cox.
Here.
Commissioner Julia Genorio.
Here.
Commissioner Michaela Finneran.
Here.
And my name is Robert Depper. I am here. I understand that Commissioner Comerford was on, I believe, a moment ago, but we have a quorum, so we'll just go forward. And first order of business is additions or modifications to the agenda. Does anyone have any additions or modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, we will move forward. I would move to adopt the previous meeting's minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Minutes from previous meeting have been adopted. The next order of business is the public forum. So is anyone here? Sir, please come have a seat. If you could just identify yourself, let us know what your name is and what you would like to talk about.
Are we on? Yeah, okay, perfect. My name's Bill Morris. I live in Ward 5. I serve as an inspector of elections there, but that is unrelated to what I'd like to speak about this evening. I have with apologies, I've made a prepared statement. There was a little bit too much for me to just go with extemporaneously, but I still think I can keep it under 3 minutes to value everybody's time. So, the Commission and the BPD, I'd like to tee up a question for you. I would hope that it is now abundantly clear what ICE and the Border Patrol are doing. They are coming for our neighbors, but they're also coming to terrify us. They're coming to do the administration's bidding as a private, unaccountable army and to make us afraid. They're coming to make sure that no one speaks up now, and they hope that none of us will be left to speak up when the last of us are taken. These are bullies with guns and with the sanction of the federal government. They don't just want our neighbors, they want everything. And just as it is with bullies in the schoolyard, we here, the people of the city, will not give them an inch, because we know what happens when we give them an inch. They will take the rest and demand that we thank them for it. So, we will meet them in the streets with whistles and cameras and heart, and we will not give way. So my question to you is, if they begin attacking us, if they begin killing us, how will the BPD respond? This question is loaded and presumptuous, but it must be asked anyway. The poison that exists between residents and police here and throughout the country has become an urgent problem for the durability of our republic. Your task is upholding the law. Your task is maintaining order. Court after court has declared the actions of ICE to be lawless, and they bring a tornado of disorder with them wherever they go. So what will you do if they bring that here? How will you protect us if they come? And if the answer is actually that you will not protect us, if you'll yield to the authority of men in masks with no badge numbers, if you'll ask the DA to file an injunction and wait for a court order that will be overturned by a Trump appointee, if the answer is what I fear most of all, that you will join in, that you will gas us, beat us, and kill us alongside ICE, then I feel we have a right to know that now. On the other hand, if the answer is that you will stand with us, I'll rejoice, though I understand that's a lot to ask. If the answer is that you will shield us, if the answer is that you will protect the people under your care from a true threat, then imagine how far that could go toward healing the rifts of the past decade. Imagine how formidable a roadblock that would be in this one tiny city against the sort of fascism that our grandparents and great-grandparents traveled across the oceans to fight against and that is now moving to occupy the nation. What will you do if they come here? And if you have an answer to that, I would happily take it. If you do not, I would hope that you would consider it. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much. We have another participant online, Counselor Milo Grant.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I am going to be sending you a few things as well as copying the chief. The previous speaker took one item off my list, which is the issue around ICE. I'm actually going to be sending you a couple of recordings of the REIB committee meetings. At our last week's meeting, we had individuals who were with Trusted Community Voices. This group of individuals was previously under the CEDO department. They are now under the REIB department, and they are individuals who are new Americans who've been here for some time, and they work with people in their community. So there's someone who works with Congolese, there's someone who works with people from Nepal, there's someone who works with people from Somalia, etc. And what we heard was some very disturbing concerns. I think things that we knew ICE was in the area. We've seen the issues with migrant justice, helping people who had been taken, but we've had people taken in our city out of our other new American communities. And there was a real strong expression of fear, and I'd like you to listen to that meeting so that you have an understanding what people in our community are going through. I believe this is something that the police commission should definitely have a future agenda about, and we need to be making plans in our city. They just went into Lewiston, Maine. They're causing havoc up there, and that city is very, very similar to the city of Burlington. The other items that I'm sending you are a copy of the 2020 resolution. So the REIB committee, REIB Racial Equity, Inclusion, Belonging, is doing a project where we're going back and looking at the 2020 resolution and reviewing what the resolution called for and what things maybe weren't done and where we stand with other things. And one of the other meetings I'll be sending you is a specific meeting where we were going through that resolution. And I ended up talking at length. It was very interesting for me as a former commissioner. It was like I was reliving these whole experiences. There were things, although it's not talked about a lot, there were things in there specifically geared toward the police commission. And after that resolution was passed, the police commission did take up the mantle of the things that were listed. What has happened is we've lost momentum, to put it bluntly. We've lost momentum. So I would definitely like all of you to listen to it, listen to the concerns that I've expressed. And then I would like to do a joint committee, and I will follow up with the chair of the commission to have a joint REIB public safety and commission meeting to look at the resolution. So for example, the complaint process, there seems to that we've lost momentum on the complaint process. There haven't been commission reports the last couple of years. So the chief of BPD has his own report, but the commission started doing their own reports. We haven't had that. We don't have any more review, it seems, like of the use of force reports, which is deeply, deeply concerning. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that and have an understanding of what's going on and what the commission's focus is, because we have to be reviewing use of force somewhere. If not on the police commission, do we go to the public safety committee? Do we go to REIB? Because all these things intersect with each other. Thank you for the time. First email was already sent, and I'm working on finding the links to the recordings, because REIB isn't on Town Meeting TV, but we do have the recordings inside of Civic Clerk. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Counselor Grant. All right, it doesn't appear that there is anybody else from the public here. That being the case, I will close public forum and move on to the second order, or the next order of business, the chief's report. And Chief, before you give that report, I was going to ask, and certainly this is not, I'm sure, a shock to anybody else, but this issue of ICE coming into communities is, rightly so, on the top of everyone's mind, I'm sure. So as you give your report, if you could kind of cogitate on that, and then at the end, if you could give us some insight into the Burlington Police Department's perspective on that.
Certainly, Chair. I can start with that, actually. The mayor convened a group of department heads today to begin really thinking about what it may resemble if ICE were to show up here in Burlington. And of course, we're fortunate in a lot of different ways. One, our connection to the community. Two, the policy guidance that's given to us by the state of Vermont. And through the fair and impartial policing policy, it's abundantly clear our limitations, strict restrictions against engaging in any civil immigration matters, and then how we actually interface with federal immigration authorities on a lot of different levels. We also have really good guidance in terms of our state use of force policy. There's a lot of questions around the force tactics that the federal agents have used that have been socialized on videos. And we have a duty to intervene clause in the state model policy. But I'd like to point out to folks is that duty to intervene is strictly related to the law enforcement officers as defined in state statute here in Vermont, which excludes federal officers, and federal agents, officers are trained to different standards. And in fact, our baseline use of force standard is greater here in the state of Vermont than it is at the federal level. We have what's known in the industry as a gram plus standard, where the force not only needs to be objectively reasonable, but it needs to be proportional and necessary. And that is different from the federal standard. So we've seen other communities in New England wrestle with these issues on a smaller scale, where ICE will do a lawful apprehension of someone in a neighborhood that draws the attention of other members of the public. It becomes a disturbance. Local law enforcement responds. And of course, in those cases, and would be the same in our case, we would be called in and we would have to render the scene safe and figure out who is who. If there are federal authorities on the scene, they're carrying out a lawful mission, we cannot interfere with that, but we can also make the safe space, the space safe for people to exercise First Amendment rights. But in no way can a member of the public nor a Burlington police officer impede a federal agent doing a lawful duty. And I know that there's been a lot of deliberation about what a lawful duty is, how that's defined, how we could verify it. In a lot of ways, we would have a lot of limitations. But again, the mayor convened a group of us today. This is a start of an iterative process to see what safeguards the city of Burlington can put in place for our residents and visitors, as well as how should we be prepared as a municipality when you look at, to scale these things, these operations are very chaotic, and we would need some type of structured plan to respond as, as a government entity in whole. So high level reflections on that topic, much more to come from the administration as the next couple of weeks unfold.
Can I stop you there and ask if any of the commissioners have any questions in that regard? Okay. Hearing none, thank you much, Chief. Please continue. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'll start with the written report this month. We also have a pretty fulsome data set that we'll walk through. But in terms of personnel and staffing, we did welcome 2 new officers this week with the BPD. Krista Town was our civilian recruiter, part of our professional staff here. Krista began with the Burlington Police Department as a community service officer, then took the civilian recruiter position, liked the recruitment work so much that she went through the process to become a police officer. So she and a second employee, Hannah Schoen, will be attending the 121st session of the Vermont Police Academy in February. And so we're excited to bring them on board. It is 50% of our metric. We had hoped to have 4 in this class. We were only able to identify 2 suitable candidates for selection. We'll be holding a ceremony here to swear them in and to recognize the promotions of Sergeant Eric Cradaville and Sergeant Deidre LeCouture this Thursday afternoon at 4:30. That the addition of those 2 employees bring us up to a total sworn force of 61 officers, but unfortunately, the 2 new officers aren't available for assignment yet. They have to go through their full training. In addition, we have 10 officers that are on long-term leave. So we have 5 injured officers. These are long-term injuries that either require some type of surgical intervention or a period of physical therapy. We have 2 officers on family medical leave, 2 officers out pending use of force review by the Attorney General's office, and then 1 officer that's been on military orders for a long time. Operating the Burlington Police Department with 51 sworn total officers is a huge challenge. Just to kind of magnify this issue, all 10 of the folks that I just referenced, they're assigned to uniform services. So we're really, really stretched in terms of available officers for shift. We're thankful for this cold, snowy winter right now, and we're gearing up with different strategies and looking across the organization on how we can use other employees to get out into the parks and public spaces in the spring when we know that the disorder that we faced last summer will return. The number of unhoused individuals living in the community has not decreased. The number of unhoused individuals that aren't eligible for different housing options right now is really kind of illuminating as to what we will see show back up once the weather warms. So not the best outlook in terms of our staffing model currently. We also evaluated the recruitment officer role. Sergio Calderi has done a fantastic job in this role for about the last year and a half. This is a chief's assignment under the collective bargaining agreement, and we decided that we needed to make a change and go in a different direction. Detective Crystal Wren will be transferring over to take on that work. She's very excited. She's spent about the last 17 years with the organization, had a lot of different roles, and right now she's working with Officer Calderi and the new recruits in pre-basic to learn kind of the work that goes into that program. And she should be able to hit the ground running and advance some of our marketing ideas and identify ways in which that we can really stay connected with candidates that we see value in. Because I'm afraid the way that our process is structured right now is that we wait for a lot of these other phases of the process to play out, whether it's a physical fitness test or a written examination, without actually sitting down and talking with the applicant. And I think that at this stage in this business, we need to talk with people that are interested with us to see if we need to work with them to get them in a place where they can be successful on a physical fitness test, or work with them so they can find success on a written examination. So Crystal will be helping us advance all of that work, again, to try to meet the metric that we have to have 4 officers in the next class, which will run in August of 2026. And then lastly here under personnel, Officer Randall Webster was transferred to the Detective Service Bureau. We had a vacancy there when Eric Cradaville was promoted to the rank of sergeant. So now Detective Webster has hit the ground running over there and has solved a lot of cases that really don't go noticed here. They're items that the media may not pick up, but they certainly have meaning to the crime victims. So we're excited to see Detective Webster further his career in that role. Moving on to the update on the Crisis Advocacy Intervention Program. Assistant Director Lacey Smith, she has resigned from the police department, but she has not gone very far. You can find her at the intersection of Pearl and North Winooski. She'll be standing up the new recovery beds that CVO-EO are going to, they're going to operate the facility that used to be the Act One Bridge program. So Lacey decided to take her talents and skills and go back into what is direct service provision. She will be missed here by the department. She's really evolved a lot of the social service aspect, community outreach, been instrumental in a holistic approach to the unhoused for the city of Burlington for the last 10 years. but we're glad to see her still committed to that work in joining the team over at CVOEO. With that, we identified an opportunity for Anna Wagling. She's currently the supervisor of the community support liaisons. Now the CAPE really is the community support liaisons and our domestic violence advocate. Anna Wagling will be supervising that entire team moving forward. So we're going to have continuity of operations there, which is a huge sigh of relief when you think about losing an employee like Lacey. Moving on to just a recap of the 2025 incident, arrest, traffic stop, use of force data. We have Jeff Nicholson. He's here online with us this evening, our data analyst. He began working on the annual report to the police commission and realized that obviously months and months of work had gone into the reports that were offered or provided years past. And this should be a goal moving forward where we would commit to the commission that we would report out in the first quarter of the new calendar year. But what we are prepared to do tonight is to have a full presentation and conversation about incidents, arrests, and offenses. We will have traffic stop and use of force data forthcoming, hopefully in the month of February for the commission. One other piece on use of force data. So we've learned through the process of trying to extract the data here at police headquarters that the department actually has transitioned the application where officers file their use of force reports 4 times since 2019. So Jeff is going to need a little, at least February to be able to identify how to extract the information and make sure that we're comparing apples to apples when we give you the report out, because even in 2025, we were using 2 different software applications. Parallel to his work on the annual report, Jeff has also been trying to reestablish the workflows to resume the regular data transfers to the data hub that the city provides on the website. We think that this would be a very efficient and effective way to deliver a lot of different data points to the community or people that are considering moving here or sending their children to college here in a way where they wouldn't have to kind of go through either this platform and look at these reports or do a request or find our crime data in other ways. So we're excited about that, and maybe even an evolution of a heat style map that would be generated there. Back to recruitment for just a quick report out. Although we didn't meet our hiring metrics, we were able to increase the number of applications for the position of police officers by 32% year 24 to 25. And we're waiting the data from HR to learn how are people actually learning about us so we can double down on those investments moving here into 2026. And then we bulleted out a number of accomplishments here. Largely, this was work assigned to me to execute when I was hired by the mayor just about 10 or 11 months ago now. And we've really kind of completed all of that work. I know that employees here have a sense of stability that they appreciate, and it feels as though that we're investing internally in ways to develop future leaders and be able to successfully hand this operation over to the next permanent chief. And then last but not least was our work really with the state of Vermont. Here, starting in July of this year, we launched the situation table. And then a few months later, the mayor worked with the governor to develop and implement the 14-point short action plan for the city of Burlington. I know that downtown felt positive effects from both of these projects in a way that they hadn't for a couple of years. We look forward to working with the state further, not only with the situation table, but this spring we know in order to kind of get ahead of things, we're going to need to probably partner with the state again, if they're willing, in order to, for lack of a better term, kind of set the tone downtown and make sure that downtown is a place that is safe for everyone, welcoming for everyone, keeping in mind Burlington's values as it relates to harm reduction. But what I do like to remind folks about is that harm reduction should never tip the scale to where the broader community is being harmed by the behavior that's tolerated. So with that, any questions on the narrative report before we move into the data set? Hearing none, I'll share my screen. Does that look good, just the slides?
Looks good.
We're good? Okay.
Yes, we
Thank
can see it.
All right, so again, as promised, this is annual, so calendar year 2025 data, and we'll start with incidents. So as you can see here, plotted out since 2012 on this line graph, where, at the height of 37,000 incidents in 2015 to a low just coming out of the pandemic of 21,000, we've gone back up rather steeply to a total of 34,824 incidents here in 2025. This is all incidents. So every call from the public, every self-initiated complaint by an officer, community service officer, CSL, or member of CAPE. We then wanted to look at our top incident categories for 2025. This is not new information for the commission. Foot patrol was our top incident category, just over 3,000. Quickly followed up here by directed patrol. Remember the difference here, a foot patrol is what it is, employee on foot. Directed patrol is a motorized patrol of an area that we've identified as being problematic or a hotspot. Next category was suspicious events. What this category is, and you've heard me say this before, it's a little murky, but what this is a barometer of people not feeling safe in their surroundings. And this is not surprising that we would have this level of suspicious events when you think about some of the behaviors, public drug consumption, public intoxication, other things that people frequently can see in the downtown. The fourth category here, trespass, just 1,730 incidents of us responding to trespass complaints. We've talked about our top 20 people in the downtown district and how typically there's between 18 and 19 of those folks are unhoused. We know that we've got over 200 people rough sleeping or camping in the city in any given night. This is not surprising to see this level of trespass complaints. Assist to the public. This is in the top 10 of every single police department in the country. Mental health issue. I think this is not a surprise to us that we have over 1,000 of these responses. Found property is common. Assist agencies, very common across police departments. Welfare check, and then the list goes on. I do like to call out here that traffic stops were up this year, and we're proud of that in terms of how we're trying to meet with very limited resources the number of traffic related complaints that we get from the public. Alarms, disturbances, ordinance violations are all up. Of course, overdose popped onto this list. And before we move on to the next slide, I want to highlight here that of these incident categories that we saw tremendous growth in, what's represented is the same incident categories where we're using our community support liaisons and Howard Center street outreach workers as primary responders when the danger acuity permits. So those incidents include overdose, welfare check, mental health issue, all represented here in the top 10. And we hope to have some real meaningful dispatch or data rather on the efficacy of having a professional member of staff as opposed to a sworn officer responding to these types of incidents. This is again just another call out of really the growth in certain incident categories. So 2021 to 2025, foot patrols are dramatically up. Directed patrols are up in a way that is, it looks like it's very, very dramatic, but it's actually a new incident category. So directed patrols were not previously being recorded. So this looks a little outsized to what actually is going on. But again, trespass, we're seeing a huge increase in the numbers over in 2025 as compared to the previous 4 years. And then ordinance violations. And why I like to call out ordinance violation is that there was some belief that we were not attending to any of these ordinance violations in the downtown, and the data simply shows or tells a different story. This slide shows again a comparison to what was going on in 2025 compared to the averages 21 to 24. There's a couple of filters on this data. We removed directed patrols because it is a new category. And if we showed it as a percentile, it would have been like an increase of 3,500%, which is inaccurate. We also identified, Jeff identified this as a logical and reliable way to do it, incidents that have occurred at least 50 times throughout this operating period. So we know that we're actually looking at incidents that we're responding to frequent enough to pay attention to. In 2025, ordinance violation is up. That's in direct response to calls from the public, even a city council resolution about increased enforcement of our ordinances downtown. Drugs, that's in direct response to, again, what we're seeing in the community. Service coordination, this is largely the work of the CAPE, both the CSL, all of the CSLs, the CARES clinicians, and our domestic violence advocate. We've got a little bit of an outlier here in property damage. We need to examine this a little bit further, and we've got a different slide on it. Overdose responses were up, foot patrols, trespass again, encampment, arrest on warrants, which we'll touch upon in a slide that's coming up. Areas where we saw a reduction in calls for service, community outreach, we're just using that differently now that that incident category used to really capture almost all of the work of the CAPE division, and we've got that broken out in different ways. So that's a bit of an outlier. Intoxication, which was a little surprising to me. Stolen vehicles are down, which is a good thing. Leaving the scene of a crash is a very good thing. Larcenies reported are down. That could be an underreported category from the public. Incidents of noise, burglaries down, and domestic disturbances all down. Just to kind of break down the service coordination incidents. So again, this is the work of our CAPE here, and you can see as a new program, the data was pretty small in the beginning, and now it really grew in 2025, where it appears that the blue blocks here are just the work of our community support liaisons, and they're averaging 156 of these service coordination incidents. What's important to note about a service coordination incident, they're tied to an individual. So these aren't only 156 incidents for the year. There's 156 individuals that our team is going out and serving throughout the year. So they just reactivate the original incident, not to inflate the numbers. There's a small overlap of the work between a CSL and when we had the CARES team here, you can see that's the number 34. And then just our CARES group attended to 92 of these incidents. Why you see such a dramatic increase in the CARES activity, years 24 to 25, we employed people. That's the difference. There were not clinicians on the CARES team prior to 2024. And then call out here to the work of our domestic violence advocate who's been with the organization for about 30 years, Mary Ann McAllister, 57 incidents of working directly with survivors of domestic assault or intimate partner violence. Commissioner Cox, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. I was wondering if you have a category someplace of police coordinating with street outreach.
Yes, we do have some Howard data that we need to meld into our data source as well. And now that we're actually have a formal MOU with Howard, we'll be working, well, Jeff will be working with the Howard team on melding those two data sources to figure out, one, to ensure that we're not double counting anything that's reported to the police that was actually reported directly to Howard already. And two, to make sure that there's not a double report in the sense of, do we have an incident generated because of a CSL activity that Howard has a parallel incident with in their system? So a little bit more work to come on that front.
Thank you, Chief.
This slide really highlights the discretionary incidents. When we talk about officers' discretionary time, this is where they're either conducting directed patrols, traffic enforcement, or foot patrols, and we painted that against the overall incident count. So you can see, again, over the last, or since 2012, the number of traffic stops that kind of they reached a peak in 2015 of 6,000 per year. We were well staffed then. This was at a time where Ferguson had occurred, and there hadn't been a lot of the Department of Justice report hadn't come out about how Ferguson was really overtaxing, if you will, their public through very aggressive traffic enforcement and ordinance enforcement. But you can see then over the years how officers kind of stopped engaging in traffic enforcement. And again, this is a nationwide phenomenon. Of course, it bottoms out through the pandemic, which is reasonable, but it's good to see that number up to 953 for calendar year 2025, because we do get a lot of complaints from the public. And then the other blue section of block here are the patrols. This is a combination of directed patrol and foot patrols that occurred, and very proud that the organization essentially doubled the number of these activities between 24 and 25. Again, attributing some of that to directed patrol being a new category. This graph is a little busy, but it's what it illustrates is monthly calls for service by area. So we have 5 patrol areas in the city: downtown, the Old North End, the Hill section, the South End, and the New North End. And as one would expect, the downtown is definitely always the prize fighter in incident categories. This data is simply calls from the public. All self-initiated activity, all police-related activity is distilled out of this graph. Our next busiest area is the city's Old North End, followed by the Hill section, South End, which I'll tell you, those numbers are really driven by a few different things: car crashes, commercial burglary alarms, and retail theft in the South End are typically our top categories there. And then the New North End is our quietest area, and not surprising given kind of the suburban nature of the New North End and its construct. The next couple of graphs, or next couple of slides here, are going to talk about violent crime. So up until this presentation, we had been including domestic violence in our violent crime numbers, and an area where I made a mistake in this data, where domestics really needed to be pulled out into their own category, and we needed to add in an incident category called robbery. So this graph now includes robbery, homicide, which is inclusive of not only the act of homicide, but attempted homicide, reckless endangerment, which an example of that is someone firing a gun but not striking a person, simple assault and aggravated assault. That's just the difference between misdemeanor and felony. You'll see aggravated assault is the dark blue along the bottom. You know, there was a little bit of a rise in 2024. We're down to 76 in 2025. Simple assaults down a little bit, but that number I would argue is fairly static over the 5-year period. Robbery, we definitely have seen outsized numbers here, but I'd like to really talk a little bit about what robbery means. So there's the classic like store robbery that we all think of when that term is used. In Vermont, we also have another category of crime called larceny from a person, and that's accounted for in our robbery statistics. And what we saw in 2025 in the downtown are people known to one another, typically living on the street, involved in substance use disorder, stealing from one another, things like cash, drugs, cell phones, and then reporting it to the police. So in no way does this represent like street robberies of people unknown to one another, or an increase in convenience store robberies or bank robberies. This really, when we look at these 29 incidents, in large part, these are all persons known to one another, involved in some other type of criminal activity, that end up committing this theft. And then reckless endangerment. Again, we've talked a little bit about the decrease in gunfire incidents. That is reflected here. 8 incidents of reckless endangerment, and then this little tiny red sliver here are they're representative of 2 murder cases, but again down from 8 and then higher numbers in 2022. In terms of how these violent crime map across the city, we know by virtue of being cops here in Burlington that a lot of this activity does occur in the downtown. That data is certainly persistent when you look at the bright red mark here of 98 incidents in 2025. not dissimilar from what was going on, although the number was slightly smaller in 2020, but it's always the downtown district that has the lion's share of these violent crime incidents, closely followed by the city's Old North End. But this is just a good way to kind of map out that where we see concentration and then where we see the one-offs, and the graphs kind of speak for themselves. This is very helpful, though, in terms of explaining why we use our limited human resource pool in the downtown area, because it's where we have the most crime and disorder. We broke out domestic assaults, as I previously mentioned. There is like two different categories, if you will. There's a misdemeanor domestic assault and then a felony domestic assault. What makes a domestic assault a felony can be a couple of different factors. One could be using a weapon in the commission of the domestic assault. It can be the degree of injury to which a person sustained. It can also relate to whether or not the assailant in the case has an abuse prevention order in place or a previous conviction of domestic assault. We've seen an outsized number of felony domestic assaults in the city in 2025. Looking at this from a very, very high level, I also feel as though what's contributing to more felony domestic assault arrests being made, better investigations. We're making a lot of strangulation cases that we didn't make historically. And I also sit on the state of Vermont's Domestic Violence Fatality Review Commission, and there's an instrument, a lethality assessment protocol that officers can use with survivors to ask them 6 or 7 questions, and if they score high enough in how they answer the questions, you put them right on a phone with a domestic violence advocate, because their lives are literally at risk. I'm hopeful that the General Assembly will take our recommendations seriously this year and provide funding to the Vermont Criminal Justice Training Council to identify the lethality assessment protocol, which would be the most effective for the state, train all Vermont law enforcement on its use, and roll that out. I think we would make even more strangulation cases if we were to use that tool in a uniform fashion. Domestic violence related incidents. So we have not only our arrest categories, which are the green bars similar to the last slide, but also the number of verbal domestics and quarrels that we respond to. And you'll see that over time that this is always a large body of work for the police department. With back in 2020, 1,280 domestic dispute where we're not making arrest responses. In 2025, just over 1,100 responses. Not to be on my soapbox forever about the lethality assessment protocol, but if we were using the lethality assessment protocol on all of these incidents that are in the gray, we would find historical assault cases. Survivors would either tell the police or a victim advocate about something that had gone on within the statute of limitations where we could possibly make an arrest and interrupt the cycle of violence. So again, just hopeful that we'll have that tool available moving forward. Move into burglary and larceny incidents. So in 2025, you'll see that we had 824 larceny from motor vehicles. Again, we do have some broken window cases, but a lot of these cars, people still leave their cars unlocked with valuables inside, and particularly folks that are substance use dependent will prey on people like this to steal things out of their car to make quick cash. It's down, a little bit here, but this is totally an incident category where the public could help us help them by not making them such an easy target. Retail theft is pretty static from last year. We know that the number of retail thefts is grossly underreported by the retail community to the police department. Larceny from buildings, down substantial. I don't know if that's actually, it's down because of any crime suppression that we've offered, or if it's underreported. That is an unknown or an open question in my mind. Stolen vehicles have decreased, so that's helpful because we know that in previous years where 311 and nearly 200 cars were stolen, many of those were unlocked with the keys in them. There was also back when that number was 311 and nearly 200 was kind of the fascination that was going on social media about stealing Kias and Hyundais. That seems to have subsided a little bit. Burglaries are down a little bit, and then all other larcenies are fairly static. Jeff prepared a similar heat map related to where the burglary and larceny incidents typically are concentrated here in the city. Not surprising that we see a lot of this property crime going on in the Hill section, where typically students living on a lot of these blocks, or even families that live on these blocks that are leaving things that are accessible for people that are looking for an opportunity, whether it's the unlocked car, the unlocked bicycle on the porch, an unlocked house, or an unlocked accessory structure with some type of valuables, be it tools or whatever. They can fence quickly. We know that this activity goes on, but we also know that it's largely centered here in the Hill section in the downtown, with then some outliers in the New North End, and some of the bigger numbers that you see down on the Shelburne Road corridor. Those are incidents of retail thefts, particularly at the Parmelo Plaza, where Market 32 is. Any questions before we move into offenses?
Can I ask a question, sort of at the beginning of your presentation? You have the overall incidents for 10 years, sort of on the very, very first slide that has data on it. And then on some slides after that, where you have 5-year aggregates, you've excluded directed patrols because that wasn't an incident type in the past. So to me, this sort of scatter plot, all incidents 2012 to 2025, is kind of comparing apples to oranges, or do I have that wrong?
Jeff, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I see your point in that we're excluding them in other more comparative charts so as to not create confusing visuals. I think what I would say about leaving it in for the main count, for that first slide you're talking about, is because it's just that it's a slide of all incidents. I think there are incidents in the past, and maybe Chief, you could talk about this. I can't think of specific incident types that occurred in 2015 that no longer occur now. I think it's kind of inherently a chart or a visualization that will contain some apples and oranges-ish stuff. And so by just kind of saying we're going to include every single incident is a way to sort of try and capture all activity, even if now we're doing more log-directed patrols that maybe weren't being logged, a few years ago. Is that a fair assessment, Chief?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic way to tee it up. The other thing I'd like to point out, like the category of directed patrol, there's nothing controversial about it. We're recognizing and we're calling it out as it's new. It's a way that's important to the police department to really differentiate between what a foot patrol is versus a motorized patrol of a hotspot. But in no way does it inflame or shadow any actual crime data. And I think when you look at why do we show incident data from 2012 until today, we've been on the same records management system. So we could easily tailor this moving forward to do, a rolling 10-year, a rolling 5-year, to have no differences in at least the number of years that are being measured. But again, I'm very, very confident and comfortable in the quality and the accuracy of the data that we're reporting in terms of arrests and offense, or real crime data.
Yeah, I think that what is a little confusing, maybe not for us because we're used to seeing these reports from you every month, but for a member of the public who isn't, this is the first thing you're discussing, right? As you said, it's not an arrest, it's not per se a crime, and you have this scatter plot that looks as though there was kind of a peak in 2015 and then a sharp decline, and then it started going up after COVID, and now we're almost back to this level, as though it is representative of anything other than just a tracker of how often the police do something. So maybe if you feel that all of the incidents need to be aggregated or presented in this manner, that maybe it isn't the first thing, or maybe it has an asterisk next to it, like some of your other charts do, saying what is included in it. Though perhaps that would be a little too wordy, as you said, that some things are included in some years and not in others, and that might be too big of a footnote.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback, and I think, Jeff and I can definitely really think about that and maybe come up with a way to call it out, because I think what we're illustrating here is important to highlight to the community, because there is a difference between like what does a police department, especially a police department that has something more than police officers working in it, like what does the full spectrum of service look like in terms of what we're delivering, as opposed to what are we responding to in terms of offenses that lead to arrests.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like how in, slides after that, you call out exactly what those incidents are: foot patrol, directed patrol, and then you have on there, some things that are removed for previous years that they weren't included. But just the kind of opening slide, I feel like, could be easily misconstrued. That's just my point.
Excellent. Yep. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a point well taken. I'll just say, when I first started here about a year and a half ago, part of my interview was to work up some visualizations based on the incidents open data on the website. And my very first question to Chief Murad at the time was, well, what's an incident? I didn't really understand the difference between an incident versus a crime versus. So I think I've been here long enough now that I'm used to it. So it's a good reminder that yeah, not everyone understands the difference there. So yeah, good point to call that out.
Commissioner Comerford? I think you're muted.
My question is, given the fact that we are post-COVID, we're deeply into the next federal catastrophe, how are the officers doing? They're down by 10, down to 51. I'm really concerned about their mental health and their ability to maintain some semblance of balance in their lives.
Yeah, so are we. So we do have, the full host of employee support programs here at the police department. And, we also work really hard at reducing the stigma around what it's like to say, I'm not okay. Everyone's got a little different point in their career and their personal life where I guess I'll say not every cup has 8 ounces, right? My cup may have 4 ounces, your cup may have 12 ounces, but really lowering the stigma about what it's like to say I'm not okay. That's been advanced fairly well, but I'd really like to be able to offer the team here kind of a little bit brighter of a light in the tunnel, and that's why we made the recruitment decision that we made, and it's also why we talk about like this is temporary. Like we will get most of the 10 officers that are out on long-term leave back with us, but it's going to take several months. And I will say that they're a very resilient crew. They really come to work every day, especially in the patrol side of the house, for their teammates. They don't
I
want
guess I'm
teammates
sorry.
short, and we rely on the formal leadership team, particularly their sergeants, to keep an eye on folks to make sure that their behavior isn't changing, because a patrol sergeant is the best early intervention program a police department can have.
I'm concerned also because we're spending, big bucks on recruitment, and retention is just as important, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question from earlier when I was out in Siberia someplace on the internet. But I'm wondering too, I think, when Bill Morris came and gave his speech, there are so many people who are asking the same questions in our community right now about what is Burlington's response going to be. I hope we don't wait too long before we get something out there publicly about where we stand. And I know there's a dance there. We don't want to attract too much attention, but at the same time, the community needs to know where we stand.
Yeah, point well taken. And I know the mayor and her team, they're working on this right now to figure out, what is the right message to deliver. We don't want to instill greater fear. We've known for a long time that a lot of folks that are living in Burlington live in the fear of immigration agents showing up. So the mayor has this on the top of her to-do list, and I think you'll be hearing something soon.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get into offenses here, not terribly different than some of the trends that we obviously saw in our incident data. But in 2025, we saw an increase of larceny and theft, trespass again, motor vehicle related complaints, assaults, numbers that we've gone over, warrants. We'll go over warrants and the arrest data, incidents of vandalism, and then court orders, and then everything else kind of tapers off in a way that I would say is fairly emblematic of offense activity in the city, at least during my 2 stints here. How does this measure up over the last 5-year average? Again, level of number of trespasses are dramatically up. We've talked about the reasons driving that. Disorderly conduct. We've talked a lot about some of the aberrant behavior in the downtown, which is responsible for that, much like regulated drug and narcotics. Warrants, we'll talk about that in an upcoming slide. Interference with law enforcement, I would like to call this one out. We did have a lot of incidents when we started to go back down in the Church Street area after midnight, leading into the hours where the bars close, and regulating the behavior that was going on. There was a lot of overservice. There was a lot of minors that were being allowed in bars, and that leads to all kinds of problematic behaviors when the bars close at 2 a.m. When we started taking people into custody downtown, we did see crowds forming around our officers, people actually impeding with our officers. And we really seized that as an opportunity. Given our limited human resources, we can no longer, just bring more police officers down there to kind of arrest the people that are engaged in this activity. But we certainly can identify those people from our body-worn camera footage and the ambient camera footage, and then follow up and arrest them for impeding with our officers. And after late June, early July, we saw a dramatic decrease in the number of people that were willing to interfere with our officers performing lawful duties downtown. And we actually saw fewer assaults at bar closing. So that was an excellent use of our resources on the night shift. Where we saw some decrease in offense category, again, motor vehicle related offenses, so DUIs, driving on suspended license, operating without owner's consent, down, burglaries down, sex offenses are down, larceny and theft this is oddly down, and I forget why. This one met the metric of a 12% reduction, because we certainly see a lot of larceny and theft across the city, vandalism, and then financial crime. Move into arrests. So we're back with the data set from 2012 until 2025 here, and the line chart speaks for itself. In 2025, the department made 1,855 arrests. Highlighting the top arrest categories, we'll just focus on 2025 here. And you'll see, coming out of the pandemic, very high numbers of the blue bar of warrant or court orders. So as the court has come back online and trying to process the number of people kind of stuck in the backlog, there are a number of folks that are not compliant with appearing for their court order appearances, which triggers an arrest warrant from the court. We've seen huge numbers of arrests on warrants here in Burlington. We've also seen kind of a static number of assaults, property crime, 279 arrests, trespass, 261 arrests, and then all other arrest categories amounted to 421. So arrest by type, and what we mean by arrest type. So once we have the person, there's a disposition. We either issue them a citation, they're lodged with corrections, or it's an arrest warrant from the court, which might be a release on citation, might be, if the court is open, taking them to court for an immediate arraignment, or if it's after hours and there's a bail on the face of the warrant, they might be lodged. That's the green section of the bar. warrant request. This is where we've investigated a crime. We're unable to find the person responsible for that crime. So we actually apply through Vermont Rules of Criminal Procedure and ask the court to issue an arrest warrant. That's the kind of the mustard color, if you will. And then the case is referred to alternative justice. The data here is self-explanatory. 960 cases were resolved, or arrests were resolved by issuing a citation. 476 incidents, they were lodged. We had 316 arrests on warrant, and then requested warrants 65 times, and then referred to alternative justice 38 incidents. This is a category where I think we could do greater work. We've been working with the Community Justice Center to get their team over here to talk with our officers about the opportunities for referrals to alternative justice. We actually renewed the MOU between the BPD and the Community Justice Center and lowered the bar for access to referral to alternative justice. And we hope to refer more cases which are eligible to the CJC in 2026. Again, another illustration here, the number of arrests made pursuant to a warrant. It's interesting to me as a practitioner to see kind of this flat line from 12 to 21, and then really outsized numbers coming out of the pandemic. This is all a function of the court, the backlog, and the number of people that are being released time and time again on conditions, and that are completely non-compliant with the court, which triggers an arrest warrant for that person. And then this is how it's illustrated in police data. This line graph, it represents the number of drug arrests. Again, this is 2012 until 2025. We'll focus here on the last 20 years coming out of the pandemic, fairly low numbers, and then congruent with the number of drug-related complaints that we take from the community and community members. This number is not surprising to me. What is surprising to me is that there was a belief that we weren't doing a lot of drug enforcement, which was part of the emphasis that led to the city council resolution in August or early September of this year. But the data is clear that when appropriate, we are making arrests for drug violations. How do our arrest charges really distill by drug category? You'll see that the blue section of graph here are incidents arrests made for cocaine-related offenses. We know that stimulants have been on the rise for a long time here in town, despite all the fentanyl that's available. I will say as a footnote, though, that the cocaine supply also, especially in powdered form, has a lot of fentanyl contamination. The mustard section of the bar shows 30 fentanyl-related arrests, and then the red section of the chart shows 5 methamphetamine arrests. Moving into our top arrest charges, again, arrest on warrant is our number one category, not surprising. Unlawful trespass, violations of conditions of release. This is every time that someone is out pre-trial, the court gives them a set of conditions in which they need to follow. They are oftentimes not followed at all, and we have to make new arrests and refer that person back to the criminal legal system. Retail theft, simple assault, disorderly conduct, aggravated assault, and again, moving through our domestic related categories and then down through the remainder of the chart here. Nothing really surprises me here. What is of concern is the number of arrests on warrant cases. And I'm hopeful that the work of the special prosecutor in kind of addressing the backlog will help free that up and make the criminal legal system a little more effective and efficient in processing a lot of these misdemeanor cases that have been hanging around for a couple of years now. This chart just shows the outlier compared 2025 to the 21, the 24 average. Again, nothing new here. Arrest on warrant, unlawful trespass, and cocaine possession cases. Unlawful trespass here is also illustrated. But I'd like to call out too that there is a new law that was passed by the General Assembly last year, and that is unlawful trespass into a motor vehicle. And that is, an instance or an illustration of that, or an example of that would be someone that's prowling around a neighborhood, going into cars, looking for things to steal. That is that we can now charge them with unlawful trespass into a motor vehicle. So that's kind of led to the growth in that arrest category. Or top arrest charges by type, arrest on warrant. You can see here, a lot of those folks were lodged. Many are issued a citation. So the court will issue an arrest warrant that just orders law enforcement to issue the person a new court date on a citation. Unlawful trespass, 154 of those are resolved by issuing the person a citation. This can be very frustrating for members of the public that are chronically calling about an issue, and the police show up and we're simply giving the person a new citation to appear in court. Those that aren't super familiar with how the criminal legal system works and how Vermont rules of criminal procedure really prescribe when we can put someone in jail, when we have to release on a citation, that can be a source of friction between the police and the public. Retail theft, largely citation cases, simple assault, and others. Where you see kind of the red bar show up again, aggravated assault, that's a felony. So those cases, those defendants are lodged. As with domestic assault, felony, domestic assault, misdemeanor, and burglary, those are all cases where we will physically arrest the person and seek bail and continued custody. Arrest by area. So downtown is the blue bars on the chart. Always, always the winner in terms of the number of people arrested by the Burlington police. Those incidents occurred downtown, Old North End, followed by the Hill section, South End, and New North End. And this isn't any different than the incident graph that we showed earlier. So it's very, very logical that where we have more incidents, we're obviously making more arrests. And that concludes the data presentation, and I'll stop sharing and take any questions that folks may have. Commissioner Cox.
Chief.
Yes, Chief. I guess I had a question like having to do with your beginning piece about the plans that you guys are working out. And I guess I just wanted to say it's not just people that are immigrants that are afraid, because you mentioned certainly people are afraid when they are immigrants, but I think I can speak for myself and a lot of my friends and a lot of people I know in the community, and probably this is a widespread feeling that there's just fear altogether. So I imagine, for example, that some people show up at my door and try to break it down, claiming that they have a warrant when in fact they don't have a warrant. They're not recognizable as police officers, are wearing masks. It's the middle of the night. I'm in my jammies and bare feet, and somehow they're going to haul me out of my home, and make some claim that they think I'm somebody else, and without any court supervision over issuing the warrant, without anything. And I guess what I wonder in circumstances like that is if I called the police for help because I'm not able to protect myself against these bullies at my door. It's maybe just something to talk about in your planning sessions. In what circumstances will the police be able to help me?
Yes, thank you for that feedback. And given the circumstances you just described there, we would absolutely respond. And then something that I've always reminded folks about in the community, even before this most recent ICE-related activity, is a Burlington police officer has to provide their name and badge number. So our uniform officers wear a uniform that is very discernible as Burlington police officers. So if there's any question about who you're dealing with, I always encourage people to ask the question, are you with the Burlington Police? May I please have your name and badge number? We will respond with that information, and then the member of the public will at least know that. But, to your point about what potentially federal law enforcement activity could look like. If someone were trying to break their way into their house, there was no way to discern that they were there to help you in any way or that you were complicit in any criminal activity. If you call the police department, we will respond and figure out what's going on.
Thank you. Also, I just wanted to pay compliments to Jeff Nicholson. I'm really jazzed about the slides that you have, all the data and the kinds of analysis that you're doing. It's a really great thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just have one other question or comment as relates to the data, maybe just a comment. 2 slides in the arrest section. The one that says highlighting top arrest categories, and the next one was arrests by type. I think that the 2 titles are just a little misleading. Perhaps the first one should just be arrests by category, because it does have all of the arrests, not just the top. It does have then all other categories is in there as well. So unlike the other ones where it's taking out only some of them, it does include all of them. So I don't know if it makes sense to call that one like arrest by category and then the other one's arrest by outcome or something other than, I know there's a lot of category type words that
You're right. That's
could
a
be
good call.
conflicting for people.
I'm taking that note now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you, Commissioners, for your questions and comments. Does anybody else have anything for the Chief before we conclude the Chief's report? Looks like it's just me. Chief, I did have one question. I noted that the Citizens Academy was canceled due to lack of interest. I'd like to, put a bug in your ear can we maybe open that back up at least for the commissioners? Or have something like that for us, because that's what I was, really kind of looking forward to for kind of a closer training for our purposes.
Yeah, certainly we were disappointed that we didn't have the enrollment that we needed in order to commit the staff time. I'm very interested in identifying something that we could do for interested commissioners. I would ask that you afford us a little bit of time. This is going to be a very, very challenging budget session or season rather that we'll be working through with the mayor and the council. And I don't want to overpromise at this stage and not be able to deliver after July 1.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief. If nobody has anything else, we'll move on to our next item, which is commission business.
Before we move on, sorry, do you mind if I just ask a question to the commission?
Sure, go ahead.
In terms of providing you all with this information that we just shared, obviously, these slides will go up on Civic Clerk, but I'm also happy to provide something a little more robust, even if it's just sort of the data tables that feed these charts. Since obviously, all the charts don't have all the numbers in them, certain numbers, things like that. I just want to make sure that you have what all you need from me, or maybe the slides suffice. But yeah, I'm sort of open to creating a document for you based off of this information that's maybe a little easier for you all to access. So feel free to reach out to me with any thoughts you have about that.
I don't know how other commissioners feel about that, but I think it would be very helpful to have access to the actual Excel document for when we're writing our report, instead of having to keep looking back to some slides. We could just
right, and like trying to say, is that line 1500 or is that line 1600?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will plan on. I have to give me just a little bit of time because I don't work in Excel, so I'll have to kind of pull it into Excel and create tables for you all. But shouldn't be too much work. But just give me a little time on it. But I can get something over to you.
And I don't think we're in any rush for that if you're working on other analytics as well for February. Like Chief Burke said, first quarter I think would be wonderful.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next item of commission business. Let's see, committee reports from all committees. The Complaints Committee, I don't have any updates on that. We really need to set a meeting. That is my fault that we haven't. but I anticipate setting a meeting in February. The Animal Control Committee, we are moving forward on that as we can. Commissioner Janorio has identified a animal expert, behavioral expert, I believe. Yeah.
Yep, she's a canine behavioral expert, so I think that's great. And now we just need a veterinarian, so
Okay.
everybody ask your vet.
Yes, I would like to second that. We're having a lot of trouble finding a vet who will volunteer their time, understandably. Vets are very busy, but we have to have an animal behavioral expert and a vet to commission the panel. So if anyone knows any vets who'd be willing to spend a couple of hours, we could be very willing to work with their schedules. Maybe we'll provide cookies, no promises.
And the vet is really the only thing we're waiting on because we got the documentation from Burlington Police Department on the incident and the contact information for those involved.
Have we reached out to the complainant to let them know that this is in progress and why we're being held up?
We have not yet, no.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe those are the only standing committees we have currently. Next item of business is grievance procedure discussion. We have a draft grievance procedure that was provided to all the commissioners, both the markup copy and a clean copy with all changes made. Is there any discussion on this?
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Cox.
So you also today sent a copy of the proposed bylaws that we'll discuss in February. And just reading the two together, I'm trying to figure out, I'm okay with what the grievance procedures are, as long as I knew that someplace in the bylaws that there would be some statements about what the responsibilities are of the commission to, for example, read the materials presented by a grievant, to review, to be qualified to review body cam footage and to in fact review body cam footage. The sorts of things that we, I was trying to think, it's like the grievance procedures seem sort of like the rules of procedure that you would find in court, which is fine because that doesn't include what the judges will do. But in a lot of ways, in a grievance procedure, we act as judges. We act as we're judging the evidence, and then we're coming up with a decision. And so it's fine not to have our responsibilities for doing a good job and being ethical and reviewing the material and doing a good job. It's okay to not have that in procedural rules that are put forth to the grievance, so they'll know what to do. But then I'd like to see that in the bylaws.
Okay, so am I understanding that in the bylaw, would you mind just sending that comment over email to me? So, I mean, if I understand you correctly, you're wanting some reference in the bylaws to the grievance procedure, is that correct?
Correct. I mean, in the sense
Okay.
that, as with great responsibility, with great authority comes great responsibility, and it seems like we're passing a judgment that could affect someone's careers, someone's job, someone's rank, and it seems like that there's nothing anywhere other than some comments that I'd made to Anthony regarding what should be on the website page about that, about what our responsibilities are in terms of not having a conflict, in terms of reading the materials, in terms of looking at the body cam footage, that sort of thing. So.
Okay, well, to the extent that that is a comment on the bylaws, would you mind just sending those comments to me, and then we can integrate those for conversation and discussion in the next meeting?
Sure. I was just wanting to know because they fit side by side in a sense, that my understanding is correct, that we're just really wanting to limit the grievance procedures to what would be analogous to like court rules of procedure, so that people know what their jobs are to do and what they need to produce to us, but they're not meant to include what our responsibilities are.
Sure, and so if you were wanting to add like grievance procedure-specific responsibilities to the bylaws, certainly please send me those comments and we can, start to integrate those and discuss them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Attorney Arpino, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to just address Commissioner Cox's comment. I don't know if you saw in the final version that circulated, Commissioner Cox, but there was some language added in response to your comments about the responsibility of commissioners to participate fully, fairly, and impartially. So we did add some recusal language there, and it sounds like all you're asking for in the bylaws is to flesh out what fully, fairly, and impartially the ability of a commissioner to judge the grievance would be. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That's exactly what I was saying. Thank you.
Okay.
About the document, which is on page 3, where it says submission by email. It just lists the website where you can find our email addresses, and then it has a citation for a footnote, but there's no footnote because it's just provided right there. So I think you can either delete that citation or move it down to a footnote.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments with regard to the grievance procedure? No? Sure, go ahead. Okay, thank you very much, Attorney McClanahan. And I joined the Attorney McClanahan, and thank you very much, Attorney Iarpino, for doing this first draft and helping us, work through it very much.
Commissioner,
Go ahead, Commissioner Cox.
we couldn't hear Attorney McClanahan because, or at least I couldn't hear because she wasn't.
Sorry, I think my microphone was off or not up all the way, but I will just say in summary that many thanks to Attorney Arapino for drafting. Our office did review these changes, and we think it's a great addition to the Police Commission's process and a great benefit to the employees of the city and city staff to understand expectations for resolving these disputes.
Is this something that we need to keep on our radar every year or 2 years as, the contracts are updated with city employees and PPD, or is this something that, to your knowledge, because, there's some dates in there that some of them expired this year, that kind of have stayed constant, and that was just the window that this is applicable, or to your knowledge, is this something that can or would change under new contracts?
It certainly could change under new contracts. It doesn't necessarily have to, but it is an issue that can be raised by either party during the labor bargaining process. So I do think it's a great idea to kind of have it as a standing check-in item, annually, or at least with the upcoming new contracts as the documents are updated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, with the modification indicated by Commissioner Janorio, I would move to adopt the grievance review policy. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, it passes. This is now the City of Burlington Board of Police Commissioners Grievance Review Policy. So thank you very much for everyone's work on that. I'm glad we've got one now. We will move on then to the website change in language discussion. Again, the document was provided to the commissioners several days ago for commentary. Does anyone have any questions or comments with regard to the language that has been provided? Okay. Hearing none.
Chair, if no
yes.
one else has anything, I just wanted to make one footnote. I'm not sure that it warrants any update to the copy edit, but I did want to flag that in the first paragraph, where it's discussed the police commission's role in reviewing and updating department policies and directives. I will give credit to Chief Burke, who did flag for us that there are statutory authorities that are given to the Vermont Criminal Justice Council to develop model policies in certain areas for police departments. And so just a flag that the commission's role here is sort of subject to the floor that is set by the Vermont Criminal Justice Council in certain areas with respect to those model policies. So I think the language as written is accurate. That is the commission's role, but just for some nuance there and awareness, that's another thing that the commission should have on its radar as it is reviewing and approving these directives that are put before them, in consultation with the police department. And Chief, if you're online and have anything else you wanted to add on that point, I'd welcome your thoughts.
Thank you, Attorney McClanahan. I just think it's important that the commission is aware that as it relates to the 5 model policies, the mandatory model policies, those are submitted annually to the Vermont Criminal Justice Council with our training records for the year. And the policies themselves are reviewed by not only counsel for the Criminal Justice Council, but the Attorney General's office. And if they are unhappy with anything in the policy, it simply reverts to the model policy issued by the state with very little fanfare. So I just, again, brought it to the city attorney's attention because I don't want to see us go in wildly different directions on these model policies, only to have them reset to the baseline policy every year to recreate the work.
Sure, I can appreciate that. Thanks, Chief. I kind of view this language really as just a very high level for the public, just so that they know kind of what is going on generally with the police commission. So I certainly appreciate that nuance. Unless my fellow commissioners disagree, while I appreciate the nuance, I don't know that level of nuance is really necessary for this document, but certainly other people may disagree.
I know that someone, I saw in the edits, having a direct link to the department directives on the BPD page. Maybe it would be, if you would agree, Chief Burke, to have an asterisk somewhere or a brief description instead of just a list of those directives stating which ones are based on a model, and a brief blurb describing that, so anyone from the public that had any questions about it could just quickly follow that link to the correct page and then see those directives with an asterisk next to it with an explanation as you've described.
Yeah, thanks for that idea. We'll have to look at, we've got all of our policies finally housed in a software application called Power DMS, and the public facing link is part of that software solution. So I'll have to see if we're able to customize that to call it out in a different way.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? The only other comment I would make is that agendas and minutes, the hot link to that is a little bit buried in the middle of the document. And so I would suggest that if there's no objection, that if that could be put closer to the top in a more prominent area, so that when someone from the public drops to that page, they can see that a little bit more clearly as opposed to having to hunt for it, would be really my only critique at this point. Any other comments?
I think it does appear like in the middle of the page when you actually look at it on the web page. It's just in this printed format that it's kind of without its icon at the end.
Okay.
I think it might just be a formatting thing here.
Well, the page, has the page been updated yet with this document? Because currently it's at the, I believe it's at the top.
Yeah, Commissioner Depper, this is just my crude Word. Like I cut the copy from the website into a Word document, so I have no idea how it will map when somebody who actually administers the city's website
And that was
takes the copy.
Sure, yeah, that was my expectation too, that, because we do have a substantially, from what I can tell, substantially more copy than we have currently on the webpage, that I just wanted to make sure that agendas and minutes doesn't get lost on a down scroll. That was all. Other than that, I would move to adopt this modified language and ask that it be added to our drop page, the main drop page for the Police Commission. Do I hear a second? Yes, Commissioner Paul?
I would make a second, but I would also add that maybe the thing to do would be to, for someone to, meet with someone in the Office of Innovation and just work out where everything is going to fall on the webpage, because what we're seeing is just is a Word document, and
Sure.
it's going to come in. Honestly, we could put where the minutes and agendas, we could put that on every page, so that it's extremely easy for people to find. But I think that I would agree with Commissioner Janorio. It's just simply a formatting thing. But this is a great opportunity for us to really elevate the webpage and make it extremely accessible. And thank you very much, Attorney, for your work. Appreciate it. But
Sure.
yes, I'll make a second.
I appreciate that, and I have met with them in person once. I've talked with, I'm sorry, his last name escapes me, Scott, over email a couple of times. Yeah, he directed me to Scheib to do the update on the webpage. So I'm sure Scheib can hear our comments in that regard, and if you have any difficulty with that, Scheib, then please let us know. Okay, all those in favor of adding this to the webpage, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All those opposed? That carries, and we will have that on the webpage. Thank you very much, everyone, for your work on this. Thank you, Attorney Iarpino, again, for your work on this.
Thanks for the opportunity to be of service, and I believe that concludes all that's needed from me on your agenda tonight. Is that correct, Commissioner Depper?
That is correct. Thank you very much for your time. I sure appreciate it.
Have a nice evening.
We also say thank you from all of us, Attorney Arpino. You did great. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Glad to be working with you as always.
And Chair for me as well. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. All right, that concludes the commission business. I'll move, if there's no objection, I'll move on to commendations. We have one commendation from the public. Joseph Fadgen writes, I would like to write to express my appreciation for Officer Dong Alex Chun for his kindness and generosity this Christmas season and throughout this time in Burlington. Officer Chun went out of his way to spread Christmas cheer over the airport with his kind messages over the radio, and even going so far as sharing his dinner. He even made me feel special by giving me stickers. I guess I am a junior officer now. Working midnights isn't ideal, but working them with Alex has been a pleasure. His presence at the airport will be sorely missed. I hope his actions can be formally recognized as they truly made the airport a better place. Respectfully, Joseph Fadgen. That concludes the commendations that we have. Our next meeting date will be February 24th, 2026. And that concludes our business. I would now move to adjourn our meeting. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.